Welcome back to the Routine Advantage podcast. I am Renae Matt, and I am your host. And today I want to talk about something that a lot of us can struggle with big time. So, the question I want to ask you is, are you struggling to stay motivated and consistent with your daily habits? This one can be tough, whether you're going through this right now or you have bouts of this where, sometimes it's a season of life where you feel this way, but maybe right now is okay. And you have a feeling that you're going to go back into this. This is a good episode to kind of bookmark and come back to. But life gets in the way of our very well thought out plans sometimes. And if we have an all or nothing mindset, we can get very distracted from our routines. And when that happens, it almost feels like the world is just caving in around us. So if you find yourself in this space of losing that motivation or your focus, or just simply feeling overwhelmed, today I want to share with you 4 super simple ways that you can get back on track. Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage podcast. I think sometimes when we are thinking about habits or routines, we tend to think that just because it sounds very structured, that there's no flexibility in it. And then we end up kind of falling off course and feeling like if it's not done perfectly, then it can't be done at all. And we really, really want to make sure that we're not falling into that all or nothing mindset. When we can be very flexible with our plans and what we're doing, we have a much better chance of being able to let life happen around us and using our habits and routines and that structure to be able to kind of get us back on track. So I know for myself, and maybe you are like this too, that when life just gets really busy and tasks start piling up and schedules start getting really crazy and um, all the things that are happening around us that usually are not within our control, we have a tendency to just get super overwhelmed. At least I do. And I start getting a little bit grumpy and I feel stressed. I don't sleep as well. I end up being just more on edge. My duties, like my tasks around the house start falling apart. So it's really important for me to actually have those habits and those routines already in place so that when I start feeling that way, I have a default and I can take one of those routines and put it back on track so that I have some semblance of structure and control where I can focus on that. And it can help me to begin organizing everything that I feel is very disorganized at the time. And once I can do that, then it starts getting me a little bit more of a sense of peace. And it just kind of like, it just kind of trickles from there into all the different areas of my life. So if you're feeling that way, where it's like, it just seems like one thing after another just keeps piling onto your life, just taking these simple steps to just kind of reorganize and rebalance everything and to get a clear focus will help in the long run because it trickles into everything else. So, one thing that we recently talked about in our Facebook community, and if you want to join us in that free community, you certainly can. It is in the show notes if you want to link to that. And anything else that we have available right now is actually in the show notes. So, you can definitely go check that out if you want to. But one of the things that we were talking about was it was if you're tired, take time to rest, not to quit. And this one I feel in my soul because if I get overwhelmed, I I have a tendency to want to make sure everything is so perfect and how I want it to be. And if it can't be that way, then part of me just thinks like, then I just can't do it at all. And I just need to give up. But the older I get and the more I change my mindset around these things, I have to focus that it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to go just the way I planned it, but I have to focus on continuing and I have to focus on not quitting and having that pillar or something to have as that anchor to continue my days and help me get back on track without just falling apart. And when times get very stressful, this can be really, really hard. So I know how that feels. But it's also something that it doesn't come naturally. We definitely have to practice this over and over and really hone those skills because it is a skill that is learned and it can be very difficult in the process of learning it. And even once we have learned it, it can be a challenge to always go back to that. But it's a learning process. And the more we practice this type of flexible mindset and not being in an all or nothing, everything has to be perfect mindset, then we can get better and better. And our life actually does get maybe not simple, but it definitely doesn't need to feel like everything is falling apart like it does when we don't have these habits and routines to stick to and to pull us back onto track. So, if you are struggling with this, I have four things that I came up with and I was kind of thinking like what could we do in this scenario? And I thought of four really super simple things to help you get back on track when you feel like everything else is falling apart. And number 1 is you have to recognize if something is an issue or if you just need to rest. And this one might sound like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't need to rest. I don't have time to rest. Everything needs to be done. I don't have time to slow down. But let me challenge you with this mindset here because I know for myself, if I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm stressed out and I am trying to get a zillion things done, I usually have to ask myself, have I been sleeping well? And am I getting enough sleep? Am I just exhausted? Because if I am much better and I show up much better when I get a full night's sleep. So that means sometimes skipping my morning routine because if I am getting up super early and I just don't have time in the day and I want to get up early, but I know I have looked at my day stack and it's just not going to fit. And in order to like show up as the best version of myself, I need to have a good amount of sleep. And I can go a long time without having, a full 8 hours of sleep. I never used to be able to, but the older I get, I need a little bit less. But if I get to the point where I'm just totally exhausted and everything I just feel on edge about, that is one of the first things I ask myself is, am I getting enough sleep? And a lot of times I just have to take a day or two and make the decision that I am not going to get up early. Maybe I'll still I should clarify. It's not skipping my morning routine fully, it's condensing it. And I've talked about this in the past of having like different morning routines, having a short one, having a long one so that it can be flexible with your life. And that's what I do. So I don't usually, if I need a lot of sleep, I don't usually do my full, 1.5 to 2.5 hour routine with my business block in there and everything like that. I will usually condense it and do a shortened time and readjust my day stack if I need to. And maybe it's just focusing on doing my protein shake and my supplements in the morning and my Bible study, and that's it. Like, that's all I'm doing before I move into my day because I need my rest. And I know when you're really busy, getting more rest or sleeping in or going to bed earlier, whatever you need to do, taking a nap, whatever you need to do, that feels like the last thing you have time for, but it's probably the thing that you need most. And when you make that decision, like I want you to be making that decision intentionally, because it's not just saying, "Oh, I need more rest," and sleeping until 10 a.m. every day and feeling like you just can't get out of bed because you feel like you're just in a funk. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, when you are feeling this way, you intentionally say, "Okay, I am going to plan to sleep in tomorrow," and you let yourself sleep in and rest and just soak in that rest, and don't get up feeling bad about it. Like, don't feel guilty about it. You need your rest. And then when you get your rest, you will actually show up much fresher and brighter and ready to take on the day because you have been rested. So that's super important, is to make sure that you are asking yourself that. And if it's not rest that you need, then address the different issue of what it is that you need. But make sure you are asking yourself, like, are you just absolutely exhausted where you just need some rest and you need to prioritize that? Number two is to brain dump everything that's on your mind. And this one can be in a journal, it can be on a notebook, it can be on a giant whiteboard if you want it to be, whatever works for you. Just get everything out, because when you're feeling overwhelmed, all of that is usually stuck in our heads, and that causes us to just feel even more overwhelmed because we're trying to keep track of everything and we're trying to juggle everything in our brain. And for me, I love just sitting down with a pen and paper and I just brain dump everything, because then I can look at that and I can look at what my day is filled with, what tasks need to be done, even how I'm feeling. Like, you just get it all out onto paper, and then from there, you can look at it from more of that bird's eye view and create a plan. And at that point, you can really just like focus on what the priorities are and just not think about it anymore. You have it written down and just attack it from there. But sometimes, even just getting it all out onto paper, you start to realize, like, okay, things aren't as busy as they seem, or they're not um as an emergency. Like, if something feels like everything is an emergency and everything is dire, it's not always the case. So just getting it out onto paper and just letting go of all of it can be really beneficial. And then if you need to make a plan from there, then we can go from there. And that goes into the third thing, is after you do the brain dump, is to actually create a plan. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, we really want to make sure that we're choosing our priorities and then creating a plan to complete them. So when you're doing that brain dump, grab a highlighter and then go through and be like, okay, these are the things that are most important. The other things, maybe they are still important, but they don't have to be done right away. So grab a highlighter and, highlight just the things that have to be done right away, and let the other stuff go for now and just create a plan to get those things done. And feel really good about doing that, because the more we just keep everything in one big bucket and we just feel frazzled and we try to multitask, things are not done as well as they could be if we just focus on one simple thing, complete it, and then go on to the next thing. So, making sure that you adjust and really recognize those priorities is really super important. And I actually have a blueprint. I have a couple of things that actually will help you with this. So, if you need to create a plan, and this is like my plan, before I go on to my resources, my plan, when the things that pull me back are my routines, and that's why I created those 5 foundational routines, because they cover all of the big major areas in my life that I tend to start feeling overwhelmed. It gives me the structure to pull me back into a routine so that I stop feeling overwhelmed in those areas. And it covers the 5 areas. It covers your meal planning routine, your movement routine, it covers your daily 7 home routine, it covers your budget routine, and your morning routine. So it's not in that order. I probably should have given it to you in that order, but or in the correct order of what I teach them, but those are the 5 routines that help give me that structure that if everything starts feeling overwhelming, I can pull back to that routine. And if you want to just jot down, like, almost like a journal where you're just getting your thoughts out onto paper, I have a free workbook that just lets you go through that, and it's at audityourhabits.com, and you can download it. There's no cost to it. You can just download it and use it almost like a journal just to get your thoughts out onto paper. And then if you want to actually have, a workbook to walk you through building your routines so that you can implement them and in those 5 areas, then go to yourorganizedlifeblueprint.com, and that is where you can get the PDF that either you can do the PDF that is downloadable that you can get right then and there, or you can actually grab the physical workbook off of Amazon from that link as well, whichever one works better for you, but that one will help walk you through actually creating those routines so that you can begin implementing them. And it walks you through doing it in 8 weeks so that you can just take 1 week at a time to do a specific exercise so that you're building them and implementing them over the course of 8 weeks, not just doing it all at once, because that alone can be overwhelming. So, if you need some help with some of those things, those would be super useful. And again, those links are in the show notes if you ever need to go back and look at those. Then we have number 4. Once you have created your plan, you want to choose one habit or routine to be consistent with and to focus on this as your default. So, when all else fails and you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, what is one thing that you can default to that will help you get back on track? For me, this is I have 2 actually. It is my morning routine that will help give me a sense of peace because I can make sure I'm planning out my day, I'm planning out my week, I'm planning out my meals if I need to be. I can take that quiet time in the morning because I have prioritized the mornings as my time. I can take that time in the morning to really get a handle on my day and starting my day the way that I want to before everybody else is coming at me with the demands of life. I can prioritize my time in the morning. So that one is super, super important to me. The other one that helps to ground me is my daily 7 home routine. And that one is because usually if life is falling apart around me, I need to make sure that our home feels peaceful and I don't feel stressed out by our home. And so if everything feels like it's falling apart, a lot of times that is my go-to routine is to just take 20 to 30 minutes and do my daily 7 home routine because I know that if I accomplish nothing else that day other than my daily 7 home routine, I know that I will feel good about that and I can move on and tomorrow will be a better day because I feel really good about my house this day. So that is something that I use for myself, but yours might be the same thing. Yours might be something different. Really, you just want to have one thing that you know is your default that just makes you feel better and gives you a little bit more of a sense of organization or control in life when everything just is scattered. So that could be a full routine like my daily 7 home routine, or it could be a single simple habit. So something that you could be consistent with is when you're feeling crazy overwhelmed, you know that just stopping to make yourself a hot cup of tea or a hot cup of coffee, even if it's in the middle of the day, could be your go to. Where it's like, I know that if I make myself a hot beverage, I know that I can sit down and enjoy the beverage and write out my list of things to do, or get some organization, or just brain dump at that time. Maybe it is going out and walking around the block because you just need some quiet and some fresh air. Maybe it is just closing out all of your electronics and taking 10 minutes with no screens, no electronics, no sound, and just silence. You have to decide what really helps to like rejuvenate you and make you feel more energized and to help reduce that stress when it all starts feeling like it's piling up. So, hopefully, those are four simple ways to be able to kind of help you recalibrate and recenter yourself to be able to handle life when it does feel overwhelming, because we want to get to a point where we have these default routines and habits that we can go to help us to get out of that funk much quicker than if we didn't have it. And that's what I absolutely love about putting habits and routines and systems in place so that we can have a way to pull ourselves out of that and to feel more organized so that we can spend more time enjoying life rather than having life stress us out. So, a really quick recap of those four ways that you can get your routines back on track when you feel like everything is falling apart around you is number one, recognize if you actually need rest or if it's a different issue. And if you need rest, take it. Number two is to brain dump everything that is on your mind. Get it all out. You can figure out where the issues are. You can reorganize all of the things that are on your mind. You just want to brain dump everything so that you don't have to keep it in your mind and try to remember everything that needs to be done. Number three, you want to create a plan. Choose your priorities, highlight them if you need to, and then create your schedule to when you can complete them or when you're going to do them and what can help ground you. So this is if you again where you can go and you can get the audit your habits guide, or you can get your organized life blueprint. Either way, those links are in the show notes that will help you out there. And number four, choose one habit or routine that you can be consistent with and that you can use as your default when things get overwhelming, that you can go back to help give you that sense of control and be able to move past the overwhelming feelings. So, I hope that if you are feeling overwhelmed and feeling this sense of life being overwhelming and stressful, that you can take at least one of these tips to be able to reduce some of that stress and be able to take some time for you, for prayer, whatever you need to do to be able to help get you out of that slump and be able to have really great days ahead of you because once we can have that ability to really focus on the flexible mindset and not the all or nothing mindset, and not focus on having everything perfect, but be able to create habits and routines and systems that we can use as our backups when things do get overwhelming, life doesn't stress us out as much and we can actually create the life we want that God intended us to have rather than just feeling overwhelmed by it all. So I pray that this blesses you and that you have a wonderful, stress free day ahead of you. Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.